Dante, Bandai is reprinting Vermilion Bloodline and Rising Innocent Warrior. I have those boxes. I have those secret rares. They're gonna be worthless. What is going on? Dante, I am so excited. I'm so excited, man. Bandai is reprinting Vermilion Bloodline and Rising Innocent Warrior and even bringing out an archive booster. I haven't had any luck with my cards and now I'm going to have them all. I'm going to have every card. I'm so excited. G'day friends, welcome back to Dante's Domain. Yep, we're here to talk about the reprint situation and all of the reprints coming our way. It's very, very interesting. So if you hadn't heard already, and most of you guys probably have, yes, Bandai is reprinting Vermilion Bloodline and Rise of the Innocent Warrior, along with releasing an archive booster box later this year. So what does that mean? That is the question that everyone is fighting over. Half the people online, because when you are online and you are people, you tend to yell at other people. So half of these online people are yelling that this is the best thing ever. We're going to have access to all of these cards. And the other half have been like, well, I have these cards, or theoretically, like if I were to have these cards, I would want them to retain value, so I don't want them to be reprinted. At least that was the initial war, I guess you'd call it a war, that was going on when Bandai announced it. However, Bandai was very, very quick to actually dish out more information. And that more information was, number one, the originals are now going to be first edition because these new reprints are going to have second edition on the booster box, and there is also going to be reprints, at least a little reprint logo on the card. So that's probably going to be in the bottom corner of the card where they've got the series number and the card number and everything. I don't imagine Bandai is going to sit down with a Sharpie and go over every card and just write R-E, R-E over every single card. It's going to be on the card, but it's going to be hidden away. So they're going to pretty much look the same, but you'll be able to distinguish them if you obviously hold two side by side, and one says reprint and one doesn't. So that is the distinction between the boxes and the distinction between the cards. But the question is, now we know that that's what's going to happen. What does that then mean? Well, you've got to consider the reprint situation in terms of the player and the collector. And everyone, well not everyone, I don't want to generalize, but there's a lot of people who are like, oh, it's good for the player and bad for the collector, or one or the other, without realizing that actually the player and collector really rely on each other to create a card game. That is what trading card and collectible card games are about, when you've got all the mechanics and the gameplay, and then you've got some, in relation to Dragon Ball at least, like these characters that people have grown up with, some amazing artwork, some rare cards. You've got stuff there for everyone. And when Bandai's making the product, they're considering everyone. You might not think it, but they're considering everyone. But even when the cards are out, the dynamic between player and collector is absolutely everywhere, whether people realise it or not. So you can consider them, is it good for the player, is it good for the collector, but they do go together. So let's just simple things down, and we will talk about the player. Is it good for the player? On the surface, yes, you have access to these cards, which people did not have access to. You can go and you can buy a couple more boxes, or you can buy these single cards online. Now, the thing is, that's what the player would normally do already. And how the collector comes into it is, the player would normally go and buy the boxes, open them up, take the cards that they need for their deck, and sell the rest, or trade the rest with their friends at the local game store, or put them away somewhere and have a little bit of a collection or storage to draw upon later, or whatever. And because those cards came and then disappeared from the market, whatever the player did with them originally, those cards retain some value. And the alternative is the player just goes out and purchases the single cards online. So they will jump onto eBay or everywhere they can go, and they will just buy the single cards to make their deck. Now the thing is, when you do that and you have a deck and it stays meta for 3 months, 6 months, a year if you're lucky, depends what the deck is, then you buy the cards, and if they do not reprint, if they do not re-release, then most of them are going to retain value based on how dynamic they are in the meta, and they'll retain at least all of their value, or most of their value. And so if that player then decides to sell them and purchase another deck, they've got this very consistent value for what they put into it. Like they don't lose a lot of money, and sometimes they might even gain a little bit, which is a bit of safety for the player to fall upon. Now, for the collector, you have these cards where you go out, they're hard to get, you have your own goals with it. You might want to collect a set, you might want to collect a sealed box, you might want to collect the secret rares or the special rares or something like that. And you've got the challenge, and once you get them and you kind of display them or store them or whatever you'd like to do with them, when more come out, then it plays along with the value and the rarity of your cards. And every collector has their own kind of goals and ideas, but obviously, regardless if you have a house, regardless if you have, maybe not a dog, I was literally going to say if you have a dog and the value of your dog goes down, we'll stick to like non-living objects for now. So like your house, like if you purchase like a guitar or something because you're into guitar but you decide it's not for you so you want to like sell it later, having things that retain a certain value to it or a certain rarity to it is pretty healthy, and it gives the person security to have it. So when Bandai announces they're going to reprint all of this stuff, then you can become a little bit scared. But it doesn't come down to whether they're reprinting it or not. It comes down to how they reprint it and how they look after both parties. Now, the thing with collectors as well is me, for example, who is majority collector. I've got a couple of absolute trash decks. If you go back to my channel, you can probably go like a year or two back, there's probably a couple of the worst ever deck profiles you'll see. And more than likely, those are the exact decks that I still have to just like chuck out and like play with some mates and stuff like that. But we're not too serious here. But how the collector relates to the player is I would like open up because I want to complete sets or chase cards to grade or have these different collector goals. And with the rest of my cards, I'll put them out there, I'll sell them or I'll trade them, and that's how the players get all of their cards. So that's how you work together, like the player and the collector work together. You have that shared value, you have that shared kind of pool of resources as you go through. And reprints are going to bring a lot more to it. But Bandai's doing it in a really good way. You've got the reprint logo, so as a collector you've got the security that if you've got a booster box like this Rise of the Innocent Warrior box, this one is going to be a first edition box now. There's not going to be more of them just thrown out there. Or if you've got the secret rare card and you're worried that, okay, my secret rare card is going to be like worth a little bit less, like, yeah, it might be worth a little bit less for now. But if you're worried about the immediate value of your card, like for the next year, is my $300 box or whatever going to stay at $300 or is it going to go to $600? Then that's not really what a collector's worried about. A collector's worried about, okay, I have this box is literally going to be on display or in a vault somewhere because I am collecting it. I would like to have a little bit of security in terms of owning it, but I'm not planning on selling it. It's when the flippers and the investors get involved and are concerned about the numbers, that's when it becomes a concern. But as a collector, you don't need to worry. If you collect stuff, you collect it. And for a player, the player also needs to consider, like, if the reprints were to come out and they were to not have, like, the players that are angry about the reprint logo or the second edition on the box, like, no, I want the original stuff, I want the good stuff. You can have the good stuff, but there's consequences of having the good stuff. The same as Santa being the old tubby bastard, because everyone leaves their milk and cookies out for that dude. He eats them all, and he pays the consequences. And the consequences of just bashing out more cards, more boxes in the first edition sense, is that the player can get hold of them. Maybe they go and buy their booster box, maybe they buy these single cards on the secondary market or whatever. Same as what we talked about before, but now when that player wants to sell their cards or sell their extra cards because they open the booster box, hey, they're not worth anything. So you're not actually gaining any money back and you're not actually benefiting from the situation. The cards may be easier to get hold of, but it's not actually an easier situation. It is simply a different situation. So what Bandai has done is very, very clever. Obviously, we can only speculate for now, but based on what we know about other card games and looking at the logistics of what they're doing, it all sounds and seems really good. So we'll see how it plays out. But I am pretty confident that it's actually a very, very healthy reprint because it helps new players to the game get access to it. it helps people who have been involved with it for a while who haven't been able to enjoy all the products. Hey, now as a player you can make a deck of like your first edition cards or whatever and add in the other cards you need. Or as a collector, if you enjoy collecting the cards and you want to get all the Goku cards and you can afford some Goku cards in the first edition and you can afford some in the second, that's actually really, really healthy and really exciting. You've got to consider that hopefully the Dragon Ball Super card game will be around for a long time. If you're a collector, that's what you want. You don't want to get on your elitist high horse and say, I want these cards, I was the first to get in, these cards are going to go to the moon, everyone else is going to be at my feet, and I'm just going to fly off into space with Elon Musk. Now, that is a dream. Is it a good dream? That is not for me to decide. I may have some thoughts on it, but it's not for me to decide. But you just got to accept it, go with it and see what happens, and that's what collectors do. That's like what a true collector should do. And for the players as well, there's lots of players that are excited. For the players that are like angry about how they're doing it, as I explained, there is very, very good rationale and reasoning about or behind Bandai's decisions, so I'm pretty confident that they're good. So also interested to hear what your thoughts are, so please let me know in the comments. You can get a bit of, please keep it friendly, constructive, kind of informative discussion about like what your thoughts are regarding the reprint situation. I already should have released the video on the archive booster as well, with a bit of information and some thoughts on that. But other than that, thank you for watching. I hope this was kind of a bit of a useful, informative discussion about the matter. But other than that, take care, and I hope to catch you guys here next time at Dante's Domain. Farewell.